Aya Cash, you play Gretchen, who's a cynical music publicist in You're the Worst. And the premise of the show, of course, is that from the get-go, these characters are pretty much, well, the worst. When you first read the script, did you worry about, like, if an audience would get behind these characters?
Not really. I don't know. I've never been super attracted to the likable characters, the like nice girls, the more palatable people in life. And so I knew there was an audience out there because I would be part of it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you make something specific and people respond or they don't, but it's not really my job to sort of make someone more likable or more palatable for people. I sort of feel like the right people will find it and respond to it, and if not, screw you.
A big part of the show is that these characters, are funny and sharp-edged and kind of, have these acid senses of humor, but also, we want the audience, you want the audience to root for them to be together and to be happy in some way, shape, or form. What is that, like a tricky balance to find, or is that just something that's been, you haven't worried about that, you just go straight for it?
I think it's in the writing. I think we have really good writing, and that balance is there already in the writing. So we sort of flesh them out and create these full humans as actors, but a lot of it is just already there. And I think the word chemistry gets thrown around a lot, but the four of us have really good chemistry, and I think that helps bring humanity to everyone and balance the sort of acidic and sweet, because everyone, we get along really well in life, and we have really good chemistry on screen, and I think that really helps.
You've done a lot of work in TV and film, including Traffic Light, which was another romantic comedy series, a very different kind of one, and now playing a character who sort of says things and does things that few other characters would really feel comfortable saying or doing. Has that been particularly liberating, or is that nerve-wracking at times?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's really scary and some of it's overwhelming. And, when I was doing Traffic Light, which was my first series, and I was sort of overwhelmed by the whole process. And there's an episode where I'm naked all the time, but of course it's network television, and it's like a fern in front of my boobs, or it was very tame. And I always had these full, like, flesh-colored bodysuits with, like, gym shorts. I was, like, more clothed than if I was, going to the beach. And I was really comfortable. And then there was one shot that they needed me in, like, pasties and underwear. And I got to set, and I took off the jacket, and I burst into tears. So I feel like, some of the stuff with Gretchen in terms of her sexuality and being a little more free with my body, I'm not so interested in nudity as a rule, because I feel like it's overused, but I feel like in this show, everything makes sense to me and is worth it. And you also don't see all the real good bits anyway. And they're fantastic. But I've gotten a lot more comfortable with that kind of stuff. And I feel like Gretchen has given me the sort of guts to do that sort of thing. And I appreciate that.
You mentioned, the nudity, of course, and within the first few minutes of the very first episode, you have, Gretchen and Jimmy, played by Chris Gere, your co-star, hooking up, and that scene is fairly raunchy, even by some cable standards, maybe not HBO standards, but,
Yeah.
did that feel like, a big leap of faith in addition to sort of, freeing to, having this character feel freeing?
Yeah, I mean, and it also creates an immediate intimacy with your co-star when their face is between your legs for a couple hours. And Chris and I are both married, and happily so, and we're very good friends, but we didn't know each other back then. We both had to get comfortable, and we were incredibly respectful, and it's always terrifying, but it's also not as terrifying in action than it is in theory. In theory, I freak out about it, and you have lots of talks, and I believe actually Jordan and Jordan directed the pilot. Like, I remember there were like little dolls on the like we had a meeting and they were like, so the positions are, and they moved I was like, oh, I'm so scared, this is gonna be terrible. And then the doing of it, you just sort of normalize, right? Like, you normalize anything in your life. And you can actually normalize being in pasties on set with 40 crew members, and you start to get used to it. I would also, you do the silly things that everyone does, which is you draw fake pubic hair on them, or you put pictures on them, or you say, hi, mom, and you try to lighten the mood while still being professional. So.
A lot of people, a lot of the characters around Gretchen and Jimmy, think they're pretty terrible people, but, over the course of the season, we sort of figure out that even the characters who seem more well-adjusted on the surface are also, kind of pretty awful themselves sometimes. Do you think Gretchen and Jimmy are actually better adjusted for being, kind of tactless and saying what they want and, as opposed to if they kept things to themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're honest. They're honest in who they are, and they don't make a lot of apologies for who they are. They're upfront with their mess, and they sort of don't judge themselves for their narcissism or their, self-deprecating, disastrous. Self-deprecating was the wrong word, but we'll just go with it. I mean, I feel like they are, they're just at home with who they are. So even if they're a mess, they're not ashamed of it. There's not a lot of shame in their game.
All the main characters on the show, Gretchen and Jimmy, and also, their friends, Edgar and Lindsey, and, everyone's pretty dysfunctional. But if you had to choose, looking at them, is there any one of them who you think is maybe slightly better adjusted than the others, or are they all equally messed up?
I mean, I think Paul is probably the most well-adjusted person on the show, especially by the end, because he leaves Lindsey. I mean, and I would say Edgar is definitely the sweetest. He struggles with the PTSD and violence and nightmares, but he's a good human who's always looking out for everyone else, including Jimmy and Gretchen. But yeah, I vote Paul.
Another major relationship your character has on the show, and sometimes he's dysfunctional and sometimes he's not, is Sam Dresden, played by Brandon Michael Smith, and who's Gretchen's client. And sometimes he makes Gretchen seem level-headed at times, and then other times it's the other way around. What's it like getting to see that separate side of Gretchen's life and personality, separate from the core relationship?
I think it's fun because Gretchen's actually surprisingly good at her job, despite all of her efforts not to be. I mean, all her ambivalence about work. She's actually really good at it. And I love the relationship between Sam and Gretchen. It's very familial. It's very sort of like little brother. But he calls her on her shit, and I appreciate that about him. By the way, season 2, he has some really amazing stuff. Brandon is so funny, and he gets to show off even more this year. So I love that relationship between the two of them. And I love that Gretchen's good at her job. You can be more than one thing. And that's what I like about this show, is that all these characters are given the opportunity to be cliches, and then they sort of subvert the cliche. So I love that you can set your apartment building on fire with a vibrator and, and live in like utter filth and steal a cat and still like get your shit done. And I appreciate that, because I think that's what life is like.
Up to this point, the show goes to some extreme lengths. We talked about that, first scene in that first episode. But have there been any particular developments for Gretchen up to this point where you were surprised by maybe how far the writers were pushing the envelope? Scenes that made you more nervous than others.
I mean, I think season 2 starts to push things in a whole new way. I think always the moments of vulnerability are surprising, because you think you're watching sort of a slightly raunchy comedy, with a lot of sort of harsh language. And then there's these like incredibly sweet moments and vulnerable moments with all the characters. And that's always surprising and delightfully so. And season 2, we deal with some darker issues, and I was pretty shocked that we went there. There's also I said this in an interview already, so if I'm going to get in trouble, it's already out there. But there's an episode in season 2 where we I won't give too much away, but if anyone watched that episode and hadn't seen the series, they would think we're in a different series. Like it's completely sort of turned on its head. The writing's different. The entire episode just feels like not an episode of Youre the Worst. And in the context of the season, I think it'll make sense. But I think even if you're watching the season, you're going to hit this episode and go like, wait, what? What's happening? And I love that. I like being surprised by that. It's really fun to see what the writers are going to come up with. So they never go too far in my book because I just didn't know how far I could go until they tell me.
You mentioned, the show going to some of these darker places, and that happened in a big way in season 1 also. This darker emotional episode, finish your milk with that confrontation scene between Jimmy and Gretchen, after meeting her parents. What was it like to switch gears, like that in a big way in that first season, after, for an emotional scene, after the characters, really worked so hard up to that point to not have feelings?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fun. I think you earn those moments, right? If you stay too earnest, you haven't earned it, and nobody cares. So I think the writers really built that to earn those moments. Also, none of us are, you get shows these days, comedies these days, that are filled with these incredible stand-up comedians and sketch people, and none of us are necessarily comedy people. It's just not the world we come out of. We all come out of theater and just the acting world, not the stand-up world, not the sketch world. So we're all pretty game for all that stuff, and it's really fun. I mean, I think all of us have done dramas. I mean, Heather did The Bay, which was like a crazy thriller. I know Chris has done dramas, and Des on stage has done so much. We all do sort of other kinds of acting, although it's all the same, but we all sort of do that. So it's really fun to come to those scenes and feel like you get a mix of both. And the comedy that I'm interested in is always comes out of drama anyway. I'm not necessarily like a brilliant, comedic, like, oh, I have this beat and here's this joke. What I find funny and what I think better at than that is just like having a real moment, and then it's funny because I don't know it's funny.
Have you had a particular, up to this point, a particular highlight scene or favorite episode to shoot or a favorite moment on set so far?
I mean, Sunday Funday is we just finished our second Sunday Funday, and Sunday Funday is always like the most fun and the most stressful. The crew wants to kill themselves. Everybody is just exhausted, but I have faith that, like last year, it's going to be one of the highlights of the season. So that's really, really fun. And I also love, I love when all 4 of us are together. And I really love when just Chris and I have our little moments together. I really enjoy being just with him and having little relationship moments. I feel like I'm saying everything. So yes, everything is a highlight for me.
The show was recently nominated for a Critics' Choice Award for Best Comedy Series. It has gotten a lot of support from the press like that. And you attended the event with the core cast. What was it like getting to celebrate that recognition as a group?
I mean, so cool. We feel like the little show that could. We premiered with Married, who has just a lineup of like incredible stars, I would say. I mean, I love all those actors. And everyone was like, who are these people? Nobody's famous. I don't know if we'll watch. The marketing was basically all sex, which is not really what the show is. So we just feel like every little step forward is like a miracle. And so much fun. And you go to those things and you watch them from home and you're like, wow, look at that. And then you go and you're like, this is so weird. Like, we're just sitting in a room, and like seat fillers come and like take your seat when you pee, and you're all like trying to like look interested, and half of it's really boring, and half of it's really fun. And I don't know, it's just like a surreal thing. And we're just so grateful we get to be a part of anything that, you know, I hope we get to do it. I hope we get to have more surreal moments.
That's one of those weird things about show business that I feel like, you know, there's a TV show in there or a documentary in there. I want to see a film or a show about the life of a seat filler. I mean, that's just I'm sure that's the most amazingly weird experience.
Totally. We had, yeah. Well, it's so weird because they're all dressed like everyone else too. Everyone's like super fancy. I don't know who seat filler is. Someone took Heather's chair at one point, but then refused to get up. But she wasn't a seat filler. She was just like someone really drunk from another table who like couldn't get back to her table. And like Heather ended up sharing her seat with this woman for half the show. But maybe she was a seat filler. Maybe she just got a little toasted. Yeah, there's a show in there.
You know, now that you're working on the second season of the show, having gotten you know, that positive recognition from critics, you know, having a positive fan response to the show, you know, has there been a greater sense of ease and confidence in the second season?
I think so. And then, you know, I have days where I think, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, and I clearly shouldn't be an actor, and should I open an antique store? You know, I feel like, and I think that's probably good. I don't think I'm built to ever feel like, oh yeah, I got this. But I think that's what sort of keeps me going and interested. So yeah, there's moments of ease and confidence, and, you know, we just love being together. Which I know it's gross that we all love each other so much, but we really do. So it's so fun to come back together. None of us live in LA, although Heather's moved here. So we don't see each other a lot throughout the year. I see Des a little because he lives in New York, and Chris was shooting a movie in New York, but we get to come and play together for 4 months. So it's just such a treat. But yeah, I still get neurotic and think like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I hope that with age that changes, and then I kind of hope it doesn't, because I feel like, you know, there's probably a lot more I can learn. So I should probably keep an eye out for that.
Well, I mean, you definitely must be doing something right. I mean, you know, not just with You're the Worst, but you've worked, you know, Newsroom with Aaron Sorkin, you worked with Martin Scorsese, you were in Wolf of Wall Street, so things seem to be, you know,
yeah,
objectively speaking.
You know, but as I don't think this is a unique answer. I think most actors just feel like, well, that job's done, and now what am I doing next? I'll probably never work again. And, you know, I feel more ease with it. Look, financial security brings a lot of ease, like not, you know, I was a waitress for many years. That doesn't, that's much more stressful than now. I have a little buffer. So if I don't work, I can still live. And that takes some of the pressure off. But, you know, you always want to be like finding new, interesting things. I think the difference with You're the Worst is that I would do this for many, many years to come. And I don't think I've ever felt so like sure that I'll be happy doing this for a long time.
And that's something I can't remember where I heard it, but it sort of transformed the way I look at certain things. Like, you know, sometimes you think of being nervous as sort of like a problem, but it's actually sort of a function of, you know, caring about what you do and being good at it. If you're not nervous, then there's something wrong.
Yeah, totally. And also, you know, there's an energy in nervousness sometimes too. Sometimes you do your best work when you're really nervous, because it gives you something to work with. Someone said that about jealousy too, was that like, when you're jealous, it actually sort of points you at what you want. So rather than thinking of it as a negative thing, go, oh, I didn't know I wanted that. Like, that's interesting. I could work towards that. So it points you somewhere instead. Well, look at us getting all positive. I'm in California. I'm drinking kombucha. I'm also eating meringues, if that balances the kombucha.
Well, that's a good life. Well, I want to congratulate you on, you know, You're the Worst, the Critics' Choice nomination. Fingers crossed for the Emmys coming up. You know, the nominating period is you know, ends tomorrow. So, you know, Emmy voters, these are the worst people for you to vote for. So vote for them.
Vote for the show. That's all of us are like, vote for the show. Amy Schumer's amazing. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is amazing. Tatiana Maslany, well, she's not my category, but let's be real.
Well, she plays so many characters on that show. She could be in your category.
And you know what?
You
know what? Like, if Transparent's a comedy and Orange is a comedy or a drama and keep switching back and forth, I would make a pitch that Orphan Black could go either way. There's a lot of humor in that show.
Yeah, especially, depending on there are some characters on that show that's basically, just basically a sitcom waiting to happen.
Totally.
Well, I want to thank you so much for talking to me today, and best of luck also on season 2.
Thank you. Bye.